and she is going to blow your mind with some of her incredible travels. We may have to do a whole week of shows with her to learn some of she's done. But Riza, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Stefan, and it's good to finally meet you.
Yes. Well, I want to go right to Mecca. So not a month ago, you were there. Everybody wants to know how you did it and how they might be able to as well.
Well, so it was very easy, very simple. So I traveled with Boris Kester, and we rented a car and drove from Jeddah to Mecca, and we didn't see any of the signs that separate the non-Muslim and Muslim on our way to Mecca, and there were no checkpoints either. We got through, and when we got near the mosque, we parked our car and then walked towards the mosque. And when we got to the gate, one of the gates, the double gate, there was a mutawa there, a Saudi religious police, and two guards who interviewed us for about half an hour. They were very respectful. They were very friendly, asked us many questions, and we told them about us. We were open, we didn't lie, and we were welcomed. They let us in, and that was that. I even exchanged Instagram accounts with one of the guards. And so we walked through the mosque, and we walked all the way to where the Kaaba is, and we did what the pilgrims do. We walked around and a few times, and I prayed and was very respectful, and I was very grateful, and thanked Allah and Prophet Muhammad for the opportunity to visit. And that was that. And it was a deeply, deeply, it was a really fantastic experience, and we're deeply honored.
That's incredible. Now, you said you exchanged Instagram profiles with the religious police. Yeah, what are they posting?
Well, I actually got a marriage proposal. Believe it or not, but that was after my visit. Well, actually, after my visit, I was invited to by one of the guards he wanted to take me to his house, to his mother, introduced me to his mother, and he offered to drive us around the city, and we didn't take the offer, obviously, because we had our own car, but this just shows you how hospitable they are there.
It was part of a broader road trip that I believe you said you want to go back and explore even more of the country. But talk about, I think many visitors, of course, have heard of the religious sites. They've heard of Riyadh, they've heard of Jeddah, Maidan Salah in the north, but otherwise maybe it's a blank map. Certainly for me, I don't know much beyond that. So it was a 9-day road trip?
So it was a 9-day driving trip that we did. And so we traveled about 3,200 kilometers in total over the 9-day period. We started in Jeddah, and we visited before we went to no, we visited Mecca, and then we went to. I'm blanking on the name of the. It's their summer capital of the royal family. It's a summer vacation place.
Oh, okay.
Um, we went there. We also went to Medina. So this
Mm-hmm.
is the other. We
Mm-hmm.
also went to Medina, uh,
Mm.
and the same experience as in Mecca. We there were no checkpoints. We felt that we were welcomed, um,
Mm.
and then we went to Al Ula, and then we visited Madain Saleh. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we went to
If
Ha'il.
I could, if I could interrupt there, I've heard that they've added different tour buses and entrance fees, and it sounds like it's quite expensive. But maybe because you drove in yourself, you could tour on your own. Or?
No, you cannot tour on
Okay.
your own. You cannot take a car there.
Okay.
Uh, Basically, there is a park in Al Ula, in the town itself, where you can buy the tickets and where you can where the buses are, that will take you to the site.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's $65.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
but it's only a what? It's only a 3 hour trip.
I
Uh,
see.
you're very limited in terms of um, in terms of time, because you get on the bus along with everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
When you
Mm-hmm.
get in the site, there are only 5 stops. Um,
Okay.
and so it's very, very organized that way. You don't have a lot of time to explore the place by yourself. In fact,
Mm.
you don't have that time at all. And that's why I wasn't too thrilled about our visit there. I know that's what everyone talks about when
Mhm.
they want to visit Saudi Arabia. Madain Saleh is the place to visit. It is the first UNESCO World Heritage Site of
Mhm.
Saudi Arabia.
Mhm.
But honestly, Boris and I, enjoyed uh, our visit to Juba more, the
Okay.
Petropolis of Juba, which is also a World Heritage Site.
Mhm.
We enjoyed it because um, basically they just let you in. They let you in, and it's a huge area with
Mhm.
sandstone outcrops,
Okay.
and you can explore the place by yourself and see all and look for the petroglyphs yourselves, the inscriptions. They're 10,000 years old,
Mm. Hmm.
um, and it's much more enjoyable to climb, the outcrops and look for
I'm
and
sure. Yeah.
look for them. And the other thing about Madain Saleh is I can't help but compare it to Petra, because they're both ancient Nabatean cities. And but for me, Petra is it is older than Hegra, Madain Saleh. It is older. It is grander, um,
Mhm.
and then you have the freedom to explore it
Mhm.
by yourself.
Because
Whereas
Petra, is Petra, right? There's.
Petra, but
Yeah.
Madain Saleh, no, you're along with everyone else in a bus, basically. Uh,
And you said you want to explore the southwest of Saudi Arabia in a future trip. Could you tell us about that region and what's drawing you there?
yeah, so Boris and I decided we wanted to see more of Saudi Arabia. So the plan was that if this whole pandemic thing didn't happen, is that we'd go back
Hmm.
uh, and continue our driving trip, but we would focus this time on the southwest part. So going south from Jeddah. Uh,
Hmm.
up until the close to the border with Yemen. I think it's Abha is one of the um, main cities there, and also the islands in the Red Sea. Um, so there's a lot to see also down south, and we still hope to do that when the country reopens.
Fantastic. And this has been a very busy year for you. So before that, not some weeks before that, you were in Mogadishu, and you've been recently in Libya, Afghanistan. I mean, the whole gallery of destinations that EPS members are particularly fascinated about. So I don't even know where to pick from that grab bag. South Sudan, you've and your visits have not been just dip your toe in by the airport, peek out, and go back. So it's Mogadishu first. Let's touch down there on this tour.
So I have been traveling full time for the past few months. I'm on a personal sabbatical from my professional career, and this is my second personal sabbatical.
Mm.
And the plan really was to try and visit as many countries as I can within within a few months, and
Mm-hmm.
try to get as close as possible to 193, 197, 198, whatever. um, and um, and so the interesting thing in regard to these war-torn nations that you mentioned is that I was able to visit um, Afghanistan, uh, Libya, Syria, and Somalia. They're all war-torn countries on active civil war going on within the space of 3 months.
Mm.
From December, January, February, I visited all four countries, and it's really interesting in that um, I was able to see the differences. You know, of all these countries are under civil war, but actually, the way they handle these wars are different.
Mm.
Um, and you wanted me to talk about Mogadishu. Well, Mogadishu is the only place or city where you cannot walk.
I
Um,
see.
and you have to be driven around. And I was driven in a bulletproof Hilux car when I was there. And you're not allowed to walk the streets. But in Syria, in Damascus, in Tripoli, and what was it, in Kabul, I was able
Mhm.
to walk the street. So that's interesting. And the way they also set up their checkpoints differ. So Libya doesn't have the kind of checkpoints in the streets that, say, Kabul has and Mogadishu has, which
Okay.
which is scary, um,
Yeah.
because that's
Leave the door open.
because, like, if you visit Syria, you encounter checkpoint after checkpoint
Mm.
after checkpoint. There's checkpoints everywhere, and that's actually a good thing because that's indicative of a government that is uh, in control of the
Mhm.
situation. Much as we don't like Assad, well, he is actually in control of his country, and there are checkpoints. So should there be any attack, when you come to a checkpoint, there are people there who's going to tell you, you can't proceed, go back
Yeah. Sure.
because
Yeah. Mhm.
there's fighting going on. Or should you go through, they know that you went through and they can look for you, or they know that you're there somewhere. But and after visiting all these war-torn countries, now I look at that as a positive thing, because visiting Libya, Tripoli, where there are no checkpoints, that's more scary because you can be attacked at any time, at any place, um, and because there's no government under control. They're all fighting. There are a lot of factions,
Mhm.
groups fighting to lead the country, and so there is no one um, government really in control of the situation. And for a visitor, that is scary.
Well,
Um,
this may be the only Facebook group in the world where we don't have to ask why you want to see these places, but what did you consider? What's your decision making of figuring why you chose to go now versus waiting for some or visiting a different time? How you chose to go? We all do some kind of calculus.
yeah, so um, I'm this kind of person that when I have a task that I need to do, uh, I do the difficult ones first, right? And I leave the easy ones last. So that was pretty much my approach. I wanted to uh, to get these more difficult places out of the way. And so I did them one after the other. And also because I have time now. I don't know when I'm going to have the time again to be able to organize a trip to these countries. And I'm glad I did because it just gave me some perspectives, some really really interesting perspectives of how it is to visit these countries.
Well, it's incredible that you did that and can share it and done it creatively. Another one that I think is very interesting, and many of us, myself included, in the group have been to Juba in South Sudan, but have not gone farther. And you've gone a whole lot farther, and I think that's an entry point into the wonderful work you're doing with your new organization.
Oh, with Explore Africa for
Yeah.
Impact, yes. So um, I have been the past few months. I've been traveling across Africa,
Mhm.
and I have been able to combine my personal interest in seeing these places and also doing some work for Explore Africa for Impact. And so in my trips to these different countries, I look for uh, good tour guides who I can partner with. And so and so really our model is what we're aiming for is to be able to offer tours in every country in Africa. Uh,
Wow.
that's the ideal uh, scenario for us. And our model is that we grow through partnership. We
Mhm.
partner with the tour guides or tour operators in each country, and and we put together a tour depending on really my own experience, and so I look for for I focus on spending time with people, with ethnic groups, and maybe learning how they live as well. Like my trip to South Sudan, to Terekaka, to the Mondari uh, tribe. I stayed there for uh, 2 nights, I think. I can't remember, 2 nights or 3 nights. And I lived like a Mundari while I was there. I wore their clothes. I did what they did. And just so I can experience, how they live. And so I get into that kind of cultural immersion. That's important for me. And that's uh, what we like to highlight in our tour offerings.
And,
Um,
and you're not you're not a typical tour agency either. So Explore Africa for Impact, the name implies a social mission. So could you expand on how the company is organized and the profits are used and
Right. So there's the for impact component of the company. So we obviously generate an income, and the income that we raise, our net profits, 100% of our net profits are used to fund social programs, to fund local communities, and we have two main initiatives. The first one is the empowerment of African women, and the second is education, supporting children ages 4 to 11. And so those are the two main initiatives um, that we support. So currently we're building a school in Sierra Leone, in a mining village, in a diamond mining village in Sierra Leone, a very, very poor village. Um, we're building a school for that will accommodate 220 children from
mm,
ages 4 to 11, so at different levels. And this is in a village called Bondaflor, which is about 8 kilometers from Kouadou City. Uh, so we are offering tours in Sierra Leone. We take our guests in a tour of Freetown, and then we take them to Kouadou, the Kono district, the diamond mining
oh, okay, wow.
area, which is about 5 hours drive.
Mm-hmm.
And we will take them to our village, and they can see that we are building a school there. And you know, if they want to be engaged in the school building, they are welcome to do so. If they want to teach in the future, they're welcome to do so. Um, so we're kind of really happy um, to show our guests the different projects also that we're working on. In the same way, in Togo, we are working with public schools in Avepozo. So um, we've been donating school supplies every year to the public school. But one of the things we're also doing is we're raising money to be able to fix their toilets.
Okay.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's really there's a dire need to fix their toilet, because the children right now are just uh, you know um, using the grounds of the school as a toilet, and
Mm-hmm.
you can just imagine how unhealthy and hygienic that is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one other project that I'd like to mention that we did, that uh, kind of covers one of our initiative, empowerment of women, is that we did a tour guide training of Togolese women. And so we did a comprehensive training um, in the classroom and on the job training. Um, and now we have um, a female tour guide in our team, and she's been uh, doing tour guiding since we did the since December. It's no, not about 4 months now that she's been working as our tour guide.
Oh,
So that's
wonderful.
successful programs that we did in relation to uh, empowerment of women.
Incredible to hear, and I think Togo is a fairly overlooked destination, even for EPS members. Although they've with it being the base of ASCI that Ethiopia Airlines has invested in. There's even nonstop flights from the U.S. to Lome. Talk about the attractions that you're able to offer tourists on their own can explore in Togo.
All right. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, um, we started this company in Togo, mainly because Togo is the probably least visited country
Mhm.
in West Africa.
Mhm.
Um, and travelers tend to just travel
Mhm.
through Togo, going from
Mhm.
Ghana to
Mhm.
Benin or in reverse. And Togo has really a lot to offer as a country. You have to go north. You have to go and see their UNESCO heritage site there, the Tamberma people. Togo also has a lot of festivals, and it's
Mhm.
really worth seeing those festivals across the country. And then its connection with slavery and voodoo.
Mhm.
We take our guests to a remote voodoo village,
Okay.
and where they also can stay there overnight and experience um, what life is like in a voodoo village. Um, so they will see the ceremony
Mhm.
that is not done for tourists. It's
Mhm.
what they do every day, and,
Oh, okay.
so um, uh, that's actually one of our more um, popular tours. Um, the trip to the remote voodoo village. So yeah, uh, so Togo has more to offer.
And
So
the
it's
coffee country as well. I didn't know about all the offerings you have, but I did go up north to the coffee country since my father's a coffee drinker and I always try to get beans for him. So that's one more experience you can have in Togo as well.
right. We take them to Palime, where they have the coffee plantation and where they have their highest peak as well. So they
Okay.
can take them for a hike in Mount Agu. Um, and that's also the greenest part of the country. Um, but yeah, we know obviously Togo very well, and we've expanded from there
Mhm.
into Benin and Ghana, and now we're trying to kind of add more tours and add more countries that we can offer to our customers.
That's great. And I feel like if I could pick one destination cluster of countries in the world to send a random group of American school children, I'd probably pick Ghana, Togo, Benin to learn about the slave history, to see those connections to the Americas, and as well, I think we see so much negative news, but all three countries you mentioned, and so much of Africa that I've experienced the economic growth. You've got very young populations. It's incredibly inspiring and motivating to see people that probably in many cases are coming from more challenged circumstances and innovating in the economy, their education, finding new gigs, mobile payments, so many things that it's like, wow, people are just doing incredible stuff. And I feel like I'm getting left behind if I'm just sitting in the US doing doing regular US stuff.
Right. No, yeah, we're obviously very worried about the current situation
Mm.
with the virus getting into Africa, and that could be disastrous. Um, and we have all these projects, the school building we
Mhm.
want to do that we need to raise money for, and so that's going to have to be put on hold for a while until we can kind of start doing tours again in the region.
I'm curious, since you are involved in education, and I've wondered certainly for cultural reasons, you wouldn't necessarily say all school kids learn English, but for business and economic opportunities, it strikes me that West Africa broadly, of course, there's countries that are English speaking. You have Ghana, you have Nigeria, but the francophone countries that by being wrapped within that francophone world, they're living in such a different economic orbit, such a different media orbit that it does limit the opportunities that the young people can access. So is English education a key part of what you're doing, or feeling that's not as critical?
Well, well, I tend to, if there's anyone who needs to learn a language, it's me who needs to learn French.
Okay.
For
True. Yeah.
time there, and I'm actually quite embarrassed that I go there, and uh, my French is really sucks. I, I really would like it. But I'm not. I'm one of those people who you know is not so proficient in learning new languages.
Mhm. I think we've got just a pause in the connection.
The people I work with, uh, the tour guides, they all speak um, excellent English.
Oh, that's great to
And
hear.
so and which is also not a good thing. It doesn't force me to then
Yeah, for
learn
you.
French. And
It seems
so,
to speak well for their opportunities. It just broadens the customer base. They can have so much
right,
more than.
right. So, give me a second, uh, Stefan. I just need to plug my laptop.
Okay, yeah, the connection seems to be a little taking a break, so we will. I don't have standard hold music, so
No,
I
no,
will.
I'm good now. I just needed to.
Paul Ewing in the comments says, I enjoy following Rita's travels. So you've got another fan that is interested in your social media posts and all the incredible stuff you're doing. You're not just exploring deeply, you're making a positive impact on societies you're visiting.
That's great. I wish I know who the person is.
Oh, I guess he'll
I'm glad. I'm glad to hear it.
he might be your Saudi religious police friend. Let's go all the way back. So you live in Philadelphia, but you've got three passports. You've said you've been an immigrant twice. So you started traveling. You're from the Philippines.
Right.
How did you get this incredible travel bug?
I've always loved to travel. My first uh, trip abroad was when I was 5 years old. That was when my mother, my brother, and I got on a plane from Manila to New York to
Mm,
join my father in Cornell,
mhm,
uh, in Ithaca, where he was studying for his doctorate degree at the
mhm,
time. This was in the 1970s.
mm,
So we lived there, lived in Ithaca for 3 years, and then we went back to the Philippines.
mm,
And so I was basically born and raised in the Philippines, and left the country when I was 22 years old. So my first trip abroad as an adult was when after I graduated from college. I also after I did my master's degree, and I then never went back.
mm,
Um, and so I've been living outside the Philippines now for uh, 28 years, over 25 years now. And I lived in the UK for 10 years. I studied there. I did my doctorate degree at the University of Nottingham. and
What field?
in bioengineering, so genetic
Mm.
engineering, bioengineering, and worked lived there for 10 years. So that was enough time uh, to uh, for me uh, for me to be able to apply for a British passport. Um,
Mm.
to become naturalized. So I got my uh, passport as an immigrant,
Mhm.
and so I worked for DuPont company in the UK, and they relocated me to the United States, uh, to Delaware, Wilmington, Delaware, where they're headquartered. And I lived in Delaware for 14 years and worked for the company for 17 years in total. So living in the United States for 14 years, um, opened up an opportunity for me to then become naturalized also as an American. So I've been,
Lifetime tax filing benefit.
yes, I'm an immigrant twice
Yeah.
over. First in the UK and then the United States. Now I'm trying to get a passport in Africa. Stefan,
Really, what?
I'm collecting passports.
And then you could maybe get African Union travel benefits. Is that I know they keep talking about having.
That would be amazing. That would be
Yeah.
amazing. But yeah, I tend to be based in Togo, where I have an informal office there.
Mm.
Um, when I'm there, when I'm in the continent, and so I don't know. Maybe one day I'll get an African passport too.
Now, Delaware for 14 years. Uh, it's Delaware if you're not in the region and there's not like you're not that you would need to be in person, but not registering a corporation there or some kind of I think there's different tax-free shopping or certain things. It's more like you go there as an American because you're trying to get to all 50 states. So make the sales case for visiting Delaware, staying a night or staying 2 days.
Well, I got to live here because of DuPont. Well, Joe Biden lives just down the road, so um, he may be our next president. I don't know. Maybe, hopefully. um,
I'll drink to that.
um, yeah, there's nothing for uh, nothing that Delaware can offer to tourists. Although, I mean,
We'll need to do the tourism bureau advertisement with
there's
that.
Philadelphia, there's Washington D.C., and there's New York within reach, and and it, this is a DuPont country. There's a lot of history in relation to the DuPont company here, um, and uh, and then that's really it. It's a very nice, it's a decent place to live, but nothing to see here for yeah, as far as tourism is concerned.
It surprised me. I went, well, maybe it was about a year and a half ago, just because I was working on finishing my 50 states, and there's not even much colonial history. The typical sites, the battlefields, the house, the this that. There's not even that much there if you're really trying to find a tourist site. So there's some nice little towns, but not like, oh my, I know that story from history and it was here. Crossing the Delaware isn't really something you that's a
Right,
river, that's not the state.
right, and it's what they call it. It's a blink and miss it state.
Yeah. I do like the black license plates in Delaware. You've got the black ones and then with the white and then the navy blue with the yellow, and I'm not sure the difference. But I like the austere license plates. That I'll talk about.
But I'm here currently, but I don't live here anymore, Stefan. I actually don't have a home right now. I'm supposed to be traveling and going from one place to another
Mhm.
until the pandemic happened. And so I came back and took shelter in Delaware.
Mm. And you also spent time in Philadelphia, and I went to college in Philadelphia, and there's some famous sites, but I've not been back much. And you said that a lot has changed in recent years. So, what are some of the new things to highlight for visitors that haven't made their way in a few years?
Well, Philadelphia has a lot of history.
Mhm.
Um, you'll learn more about American history when you visit. Um, and what else? It's just a lot of the neighborhoods have gentrified.
Mhm.
Um, there are more bars, there are more restaurants, and but there's obviously now there really are not what you would go for. I haven't been there myself for the past few years as well. So,
Oh, okay.
um, but I just know during my time here that the city has made a lot of progress.
Oh, that's great to hear. So you're itching to get back to Africa, Lome, and you said one of your goals for your organization is to be able to offer tours in every African country. Do you have a I know you've already started, I believe, in Sao Tome and some places that wouldn't be the first that would jump to people's mind. Would you have a timeline when you think you'll achieve that goal?
Well, I during the past few months that I was crisscrossing Africa and visiting new countries, I was able to find some really good tour guides and was able to formalize a partnership with
Mhm.
them. And so these are in countries like Sao Tome, Burundi, um, South Sudan, Algeria, Eritrea. So we'll be adding tours from those countries in the future. Um, and so currently in the process of building rebuilding our website.
Mhm.
We're going to launch our new website hopefully soon. Well, obviously, there's no rush to do that now. Um, but when we do relaunch our website, we will have new countries and new tours to offer.
Right. And Paul in the comments, he's asking your favorite country and your least favorite country. And I'll say you can't give the job interview question like the non-answer on least favorite. So maybe the country is fine, but you just had the worst of your travel experiences, perhaps, if if you won't say a least favorite.
I can easily say a least favorite
Oh,
country.
good.
Um, and I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah,
It's purely from my personal experience,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and that is Nigeria.
I,
Um,
I
I
noted I noted all your references stopped at their border. Your references to trips didn't continue into Nigeria.
Yeah, I probably and for that reason I will probably I'm not very keen in offering any tour in Nigeria at this point
Mm.
because of my own personal experience. So that's the only country out of 161 that I have visited to date that I would not go back again. Or
Mm.
um, you can never say never, but right
Mm.
now that's what I feel about it. And I,
Good.
in terms of favorite countries, I have a lot of favorite countries. I mean, honestly, almost every country has something good to offer, and if you can just focus on the good stuff that each country um, is able to provide, then you'll enjoy it. Um, but in Africa, I'm passionate about Africa, and there are a few countries that I love in Africa. Um, Ethiopia,
Mhm.
uh, Rwanda,
Mhm.
um, and Namibia, um,
Mhm.
Cameroon. I really like Cameroon too. Sierra Leone.
And
Uh,
Cameroon explore a bit because I think it's another one that maybe travelers even in this group don't necessarily spend on an extensive visit.
well, Cameroon. I went to visit to see the wild gorillas
Mm.
in Campo Reserve. So the southern part of Cameroon, there is a protected area there. It's a jungle where the wild lowland gorillas live,
Mhm.
and the government, and they're protecting those gorillas now. And in the middle of that jungle, it will take you about a few hours trek to get
Mhm.
to the point where they have a little um, a small area where they house the researchers from
Mhm.
the World Wildlife Fund. There's a little research station there that that takes data that studies these gorillas. They are unlike the Rwandan gorillas. They are unhabituated. Uh,
Okay.
so they're not used to seeing human beings. So they're currently studying those gorillas and habituating them.
I see.
So every day they would go there and show themselves to the gorilla and take data,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that's how they eventually habituate them. And so that's really an interesting visit. If you could do that in Cameroon, the government, the Cameroonian government made a deal with the pygmies, um, who are the indigenous group that resides in that area. They
Mhm.
made a deal with them that if they help the government protect the reserve
Mhm.
and not kill the animals
Mhm.
in the jungle, that the government will give them jobs. So when
Oh.
if you go to that area, you will see that the pygmies are there, are working as forest rangers. Some of them can accommodate you in their homes.
Mm.
um, you can stay with them. And so they're doing all sorts of, the government is providing some kind of a support to the indigenous population so that they would work with them in protecting um, the forest.
Now, is this something that you have or you will be able to offer tours to facilitate?
I don't. I hope so, but I have not been able to find anyone yet who can do that tour for us. Um,
So this just takes the intrepid traveler to show up there and knock on doors?
yeah, we worked with a tour guide from Douala,
Mhm.
who took us there. There were four of us, um, and but I was not able to get hold of him again after that trip.
Okay. Let's see. Why don't we close with one more underrated African country that even for EPS members, they're not realizing all the tourist gems that you found.
Um, I would say um, Burundi.
Hmm.
Um, when you go there, visit the pygmy, the Twas. Um, they had such an incredible experience spending time with them. But when I read about the trips that uh, people make when they go to Burundi, they really just go and look at monuments mainly, and the spot uh, where uh, where the Nile river, the starting
Yeah,
point
one
of
of
the
the
Nile River.
claims. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and things like that. But it has much more to offer than just these um, uh, structures.
You have this practical way of saying it so casually, like you just drop on in. So how do you how do you make that trip in the Riza style to experience the country and the culture?
Well, I use tour guides as well, but I uh, I read a little bit about each place, and that's my starting point, and then figure out what interests me. And I usually like to know where the indigenous groups are, where the
Mm.
tribes are, and I usually want to visit them, and then that's my starting point with the tour guides. And I said, this is what I
Mm.
want to do now. How can you take me there?
And I imagine the guides that respond are interested because it's something new and probably rare for them to have such an inquiry and shows that you're really serious about visiting and understanding.
Right, right, and yeah, yeah. So like, and yeah, I just wish that that the people would would also uh, try to spend time to meet the locals.
All right. Oh, and one Ryan De Los Reyes, he says, raise the Philippine flag. You're such an inspiration. And he is currently at 70 countries.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Um, can, Stefan, can I also mention about one of my other one of the things I do? So, uh,
Absolutely.
can I mention about the Philippine Global Explorers?
I'm all ears now. I didn't know about them, so I'm
So
happy to learn.
I am administrator of the Philippine Global Explorers, and we have Joe Opal and Nolan Tianco as as moderators for that group, and they are both EPS members.
And
And
this is a Facebook group, a website. What's the platform?
yeah, we have a Facebook page.
Hmm.
Um, Philippine Global Explorers, and it's open to Filipino travelers. So Filipinos, those who have dual citizenship, and those who are born in the Philippines, so foreign nationals who are born in the Philippines.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so the membership is open to those groups, and uh, they have to have traveled at least 20 UN countries to be admitted. And what we do is that we provide a support system for Filipino travelers. And uh, a few of our members are also members of the recognized international travel networks like Every Passport Stamp and
Mhm.
TCP and Nomad Mania
Mhm.
and MTP. um, and so we would like to be able to um, provide some resources to travelers who do not have access um, to the resources that are available in those networks. And also I would like to also invite, our friends here in EPS, those who are planning to travel to the Philippines, to Manila in the future, to connect with us, uh, because we could be a resource for you. We can help facilitate your visit, and we can also um, set up a meetup um, with you in Manila, provided that at least one member of our group is actually in the Philippines.
I never blame anybody if they can't make it because they're traveling. So
Yeah,
that sounds like an incredible organization, and it's Philippines is almost daunting and for a traveler because there's just so many wonderful things to choose from. How do you even begin to select? If you're interested in beaches, all kinds of places. I mean, it's like, pick. How do you pick an island? How do you pick a destination? It's just almost an endless supply of delights and the food and the cheerfulness. Now, this is going to sound trivial, but certainly I know travelers all over the world do mundane collecting. So is there anybody in your group that has been to every Jollibee in the world, or everyone overseas at least?
Jollibee. I don't know of anyone who does that, but no,
I,
like,
I read I read an article a few months ago in Nikkei Asian Review, the Japanese publication, talking about how I think it was at the time Saudi Arabia was getting their first Jollibee, and it was the result of their local Filipino expat community lobbying the company for years to to open up. And I'm lucky in Seattle. We do have a Seafood City supermarket with Jollibee, with Grill City, with Fry City, and it is the happiest, friendliest place in all of Seattle. We
I,
love going
I
down
wouldn't.
there.
Yes, I wouldn't be surprised. Well, if Mecca has a McDonald's, why not Jollibee, right? Um,
Oh, wait, we've got somebody who just popped up. So all your friends, so Orion, he says he do visit Jollibee in every country he visits. So
oh,
he's
who does?
Ryan De Los Reyes.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah. So some of your friends are popping up. I think they're waking up in the morning. So
There
there's
you go. There you go. We've got a.
there's a way. I love the Seafood City supermarket, which for those who aren't familiar, it's on the West Coast in the U.S. Filipino owned, wonderful, and we're big into seafood, and it's the only place we can go and we can say like, should we get the golden pompano, and the aunties or uncles there, the Filipinos, they just look at us and shake their head, no, not fresh. And then, and then which one is fresh? And they'll go over here, the sea bass, and they'll even like the Manila clams. My wife loves. I mean, they'll truly pick them one by one and look at them like they're eyeing a diamond to make sure that it's okay, and put them like where a lot of the other markets they'll just shove all the ice and the bad clams and everything into it. So that's we absolutely love that.
Yeah, well, we do love our seafood. We have a lot of seafood, as you know. Well, we're an archipelago of 7,100 islands, so you can imagine how the diversity of fish and seafood we
Yeah.
have in our markets.
Although I can say one thing at Seafood City, the other inside joke we have is we always ask whoever's working there, like this fish we haven't seen before, and we say, "Is this good steamed?" Because my wife prefers steaming fish, and they always say, "No, fry only." And and then I ask, this one grill, and she said, "No, fry only." And yeah, we've got a whole bunch of your friends coming up. Let's see, Gerald Carlo Imperial. Let's see, Andrew Gaikayan. Yeah, so all these names popping up and raising the Filipino flag. So
Excellent.
They've turned
Absolutely.
out to support you. And
Yeah. So I hope these guys are will, if they're not already members of the Philippine Global Explorers Group, please join us.
mhm,
We have in our group some of the most well-traveled Filipinos. We have Odette Ricasa. She's also a TCC member, and she's been to what 300, almost 300, or over just
mhm.
over 300
Yeah, I've heard her. Yeah.
territories and countries. Um, she is probably our most traveled Filipino, and so we have really well-traveled Filipinos in our group, and so please join us so we can help our younger members.
We'll have to invite you all back. I can put up to 4 videos on this feed, so we can get as many of your members in, popping in and out for a Filipino travel festival at some point. All right. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing the incredible stories and all the work you're doing to build tourism in some of the countries that are among the least visited in the world and that EPS members are so passionate about.
The pleasure is mine, Stefan. Thank you so much. This has been a really fun evening.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Good night.